Hey, thanks again for another episode of Triple Play. Please remember to
like and subscribe,
of course. And if you're interested in any financial planning, make sure you support those that support us and reach out to Andy McCollum at Resource One with 636-458-1798. Also, if you have any web design needs, any stuff like that at your business or home, give CS Design a call at 573-436-3717. They will also be in the show notes, so check them out. And don't forget to check out our merch. Got our hat and shirts on.
I have that stuff too. I just
working on
not
it.
Wearing it.
That's right. We got a couple.
It's a little chilly indoors now. Like it's a weird time in spring where it's kind of hot out, but it's cold inside for me right now. So I gotta.
That's okay.
Yeah,
it's good.
Who we got today?
So today,
nice segue.
Enough about me.
Yeah, that's right. So today's guest is someone I've gotten to know over the last few years. He became a voice, actually, for many of us through St. Louis County and the Rockwood School District during the mandates that happened. So during that time, we started communicating back and forth a little bit. We were part of similar groups and similar thoughts on all that. And so we have Jay Moore in today. So it's great to have you here, Jay. Tell us a little bit about you. Give us a little bit about your background. So I want to get into what you're doing today because I know you're really heavily involved in a lot of what's going on with Missouri Republicans, but I like to kind of get a little bit of your backstory. I don't know a ton of it. So
yeah, sure. So first off, thanks for the invite.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate it. So this is a new adventure. I guess, from before 2020 happened, just a dad, a husband, regular old everyday introvert IT type dude, and not really involved in, much of anything related to politics or anything like that other than reading it. Trying to raise a good daughter, which we've succeeded so far in 20 years. And just trying to be a good citizen at the end of the day.
That'd be nice if we had a lot more of those people.
Right? Oh, God, yes. A lot less, chatter from, the inane section and the insane section and more of the common sense. But anyhow, I mean, nuts and bolts. I've been in IT for probably 25, 26, 27 years. And that's just, from a guy that got his degree in meteorology way back in the mid 90s to now, that's just life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And how long you been married? You said you've been married for a while.
21 years.
21 years.
The best lady. I know there'll be arguments in here, but the best lady ever. She's an import from Canada.
Awesome.
So we had to go through the immigration stuff, which is not easy to do for everybody that's done it. God bless you.
Well, our episode on Wednesday has an import from Canada in pro wrestling. So that drops this week.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. Angelina Love.
Right on.
So,
good people up there.
Yeah.
Except the prime minister, of course.
Of course.
So if you could do it, if you had to do it again, would you just take a trip to the southern border and walk across?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that seems to be the popular path. Yeah. So it's the easiest path by far.
Yeah.
But so nuts and bolts. I mean, that's pretty much, me.
And then the mandates start happening. And something changed in you because I mean, if you're an introvert, you definitely didn't seem like that all of a sudden because you're showing up at the St. Louis County meetings. You're showing up, you're encouraging those in the Rockwood School District, and your name's popping up everywhere. Everywhere I'm looking.
Apologies.
No, I said it earlier. You were a voice for many of us. I mean, I was in full-on work mode because we had this big refi boom happening, and so I was. And not knowing what the temperature would be like in the future, I had to try to make as much as I could during that time to put away for the leaner years, which we're in right now. And to have somebody out there who was speaking my voice was important. So I appreciated it. And I know I wasn't the only one out there that appreciated it. And obviously the Republicans took notice. So tell us a little bit about that. What brought you into speaking out, and then how did that lead to starting to get involved a little bit with the Republicans in the state, in the local area?
So 2020 happened. So you come off of the Blue Stanley Cup in 2019. Everything's just going hunky-dory. And then you start hearing about COVID over in China. and then spreading across the globe. And then right around January, February, I guess it was around February where it actually entered our domain. And then my daughter, she was part of Winter Guard.
Okay.
The flags and dancing and all that, which I never knew was a thing until she got to high school at Marquette High School. And it was actually really neat. It really pulled her out of her shell. I mean, she inherited the introvert gene out of, nowhere strange. And she was spreading her wings. Very confident young lady. I think it was at Francis Howell North. I want to say that's what it was, the last tournament. And I have a picture on my phone, which I can show you, gentlemen. And that was her. That was that last performance that she also did as a junior. Wow. And
I've seen them practicing out on the fields.
Oh yeah. That's and that's the marching band season.
Yeah.
They also have the winter side too. That's just them. But they, all the young ladies on that team, they were just stellar. They were all having fun. And in that last picture of that last tournament, they, it just saw nothing but just pure joy, innocence, the whole 9 yards. And they were supposed to go down to Springfield, Missouri for a bigger tournament. I forget the name of what they actually call them, but tournament. I'll just say tournament. And that got canceled.
And this is the spring of 20?
Spring of 20.
20, yeah. The competition got canceled. And
competition, thank you.
You're okay.
And then the schools got shut down. Then everything went in. Everything just collapsed, right? So you got the fear of COVID. You hear it all over the place. You have the fear of shutdowns, the unknown. You have a kid that's still at that time 16 years old, and everything just collapsed.
Yeah.
And you take just her, and then you extrapolate that to any kid across the country. And can you imagine what's going on in these kids' heads? Let alone, my wife, myself, how do you deal with this? This is uncharted territory for anybody. So at that point is when I started, hearing rumblings. So I was off of Facebook. I was off all social media, and it was just so lovely. I hate social media with a passion. But my wife was still on Facebook to stay connected with friends up in Canada. Well, she got wind of some of the concerned parents in Rockwood.
Okay.
And then she was reading all this stuff. I said, okay, say this. Okay, now say this. And then she finally said, Jason, no more. I am not your secretary. You get your own damn account. And you do it. I said, okay.
So back on the social media you went, hey?
Yeah. That was probably April, May. I don't remember. And then that's when I started, getting more rambunctious with my voice and such, and then getting connected with good folks like you, Josh. And then trying to get engaged with the Rockwood School District directly.
Right.
Dr. Mark Miles at the time, who was the superintendent, got to know him on a personal level. He's actually a really good guy, really genuinely good guy. Don't agree with everything he did, but I think under the circumstances that we know now, I can understand a lot more where he was coming from. But, long story short, seeing the impact on my daughter and just, you talk about tears, sometimes hysterics. She's a young lady. And then hearing rumblings from other parents. And you just know, and from when I was a kid that age, I dealt with severe depression. So I had a pretty good inkling what was going on in the head. Mm-hmm. And that really concerned me. And, I just I couldn't stomach it without saying something and doing something about it.
Right.
And that's how, long story short, how I started getting involved.
Gotcha. So you started doing it with the Rockwood, and then it kind of morphed into the county too, right?
It sure did.
I remember you showing up and reading poems and sayings and different things at these Rockwood meetings. So at the county meeting, sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to ask, was that the hardest step? Is that initial step of like just diving in, or have you found harder steps along the way that you weren't prepared for? I think the hardest step was just getting back onto Facebook.
And because I really do detest social media. I really, because it does so much damage, especially to young kids, even to adults. But I think I guess I have a big enough mouth to where it didn't really bother me getting involved like that and just speaking my mind.
Okay.
It's just the hardest part was finding the right words, the right tone, because in the beginning you spit fire, right? Because you're that angry, and you have to learn. At least for me, I had to learn how to tone that back.
Yeah.
To relay the message in a more, I guess, calm fashion, more reasonable fashion. Because a lot of people, and I don't blame them, they spit fire when they're up. I know I did in the very beginning. I probably shouldn't have said some things that I said in the beginning, but you learn how to adjust.
Politicking.
Unfortunately. And I hate politics. People ask, why are you in this if you hate politics so much? Because politics has been around since the caveman.
Yeah.
And who runs the cave? Wilma Flintstone, she ran the cave. So, but
no, it's interesting. So it morphs into the county, and then from there you start to get noticed by, I guess, some people, and it sounded like, if I remember right, wasn't it a county position you kind of first get introduced to being a part of the Republicans here locally? So
yeah, so because I was down there so often and speaking, so it was like, every week, you speak. Well, you had to read. First you had to email them in and they had to read it for you, which is just god awful. And then you got to read your own letter online so they could listen to it. And then they allowed people to go back in. Totally stupid.
yeah,
Never should have happened. But, you just, from doing all of that and getting to know like Mark Harder, our councilman in District 7, and Gassel, his admin assistant, you get to know them on a personal level. Then you got to know Tim Fitch,
yeah,
and such, and then you just start meeting people, and then you talk, and then you talk, and then I guess you get some kind of reputation as a big mouth, whatever.
It's a big
And
mouth.
so then they
How about as somebody just concerned? How about that? I think
Okay.
it's more of you're concerned enough that you're showing up and they're seeing consistency, right? So, and I would imagine if somebody's showing up and they're being consistent, that would get my attention if I'm like a Mark Hart or somebody like that. I'm going, okay, this guy's bringing legit concerns. He's learning over time to present it well. This is somebody I want to see get more involved in the local, because he seems to have a voice for not just himself but other folks too. I mean, I think their support behind that plays in.
Right. And so they pulled me in, and then a gentleman unfortunately had to step away from his oh, that's okay. So I'm part of the Wild Horse Township, so Republican, where there's, I can't remember exactly how many townships there are across St. Louis County.
Yeah.
But one of the gentlemen, there has to be one man and one woman. Ann Gassel is the committee woman.
Okay.
The gentleman had to step away for health reasons, and so there was an opening, and she called me up, and I actually asked her what's involved. I don't know if I really want to do this. I'd like to fly on my own. I don't want to be rule bound because I have to behave in a certain way. So no, it's nothing like that. And so I agreed to do that. And then
When was that?
Oh, geez. That was probably late spring 2021, I want to say.
About a year after everything?
Something like that. But even before, I think right around that same time is when Mark Harder called me to participate in the redistricting of St. Louis County for all the council members, and he said, and just so you know, Sam Page has to approve our list of nominees, and I busted out laughing in his ear, because he called me up and I said, well, I'll think about it. And then I texted him later, said, my apologies, that was really inappropriate for me to laugh out loud like that, but I thought it was funny if I did agree to it and you put my name down there, he has to be the one that has to approve. I was like, that'd be wonderful. I think just for that, even if he turns it down, throw me in.
Yeah. And he proved you, hey?
He did. And that was a surreal experience. I honestly, I didn't really have a whole lot to do because there's some of the other folks that were on it, a gentleman named Adam Bone, and he did a lot of the minutia of moving the little squiggly lines from neighborhood to neighborhood to get the lines
Balanced, right?
Mm-hmm. So very, very data driven guy. So he did a stellar job.
Awesome. And so that's then led to the Wildwood Township. So what all is in detail in that, and how's that played out for you?
So I have not been as involved in it as I should or have been trying to do, especially this year. But one of the things that we're going to be working on here very shortly, in fact, your listeners, June 22nd at the Manchester Police Department, there at the Highlands on Manchester Road near 141. We're going to be having a meeting to talk about precinct folks, precinct leaders, to try to better get ahead of the next elections coming up next year.
Yeah.
So that we can be much more organized like Democrats. Democrats are hyper organized with everything because they're ahead of the game. They know how to cheat better than we do.
Right. You got to be.
You shouldn't have to cheat, but if that's the name of the game right now, you have to know what they're doing and how to mitigate that for your own purposes. And that is the whole point of this effort. So if your listeners want to come down to that on June 22nd,
okay,
by all means, come on down.
At the Manchester precinct?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So
awesome. And then, so, I'm glad to hear that you're already thinking 2024 because that's important that we're getting ahead of the game. What do you see going into that election right now? Obviously you're involved in Republicans. You're probably hearing a few more things. I know you're going back and forth to Jeff City a lot. Is that dealing with the Wildwood Township thing, or is that dealing with other things?
That's just personal activism, I think.
Okay.
There was a couple of very good bills that came up this year. One to protect girls, from the trans men.
Right.
They're trying
sports one, yeah.
And that did wind up passing. Another one, the gender affirming stuff for kids, which is just, I don't know how else to put it. It's evil.
It's barbaric.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Barbaric.
And I went down there to talk about that. And then there was another one that I was down there for. I didn't get down there as often as I did last couple of years, but another one dealing with it was essentially the lawsuit that the Robinson Brown, that lawsuit that Sam Page is now, he took it up to the Supreme Court of State of Missouri.
Right.
And it was essentially trying to have the Senate ensure that, for future sake, that the laws that are in the state of Missouri cannot allow, an overzealous medical director, whether it's a state level or the county level or even a city level, has any right to shut down the rights of citizens like they did in 2020, 2021.
Right. It's important that we get that passed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
and to name the administrator, Sam Page.
Yeah, the county,
that overextended
him, and he used I can't think of his first name, but Dr. Khan, who actually wasn't a board certified doctor in the United States, but he's in Seattle now. Yep, nope, he was not.
That's interesting to know.
So
listeners,
right? But essentially, the reason why we had the lockdowns is in the state constitution. There is a statute that is in there that essentially said in certain cases of medical duress, an outbreak of something, whatever it was, COVID, that the Department of Health and Senior Services director had the right to essentially suspend certain rights in order to disallow the spread of whatever it is, COVID in this instance. So that allowed him to say to all the different counties and all of that, you do what you think you need to do in order to control the spread. Well, we have an autocrat in St. Louis County named Sam Page, with his through his health director, Faisal Khan. Faisal Khan, that was his name. He's in Seattle, thank goodness. I wonder how they're liking him.
Probably
I love 'em.
fine up there. Yeah.
They probably do love him, but essentially that is how they allowed to shut everything down, is through that law. And the fact that, you know, the county council at the time, they sort of punted on a lot of things that they should not have punted on, because they honestly they didn't know who they were dealing with. But at the end of the day, you know, the law is the law. You've got people voted for you for a reason. It's to ensure that the legislators are actively taking proper stance on things that matter.
Yeah.
This was a thing that mattered a lot that we found out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely did.
Yeah. So the lawsuit's going through. That lawsuit, let's assuming it passes the state Senate, I mean the state Supreme Court, you know, affirms that, I guess, that lawsuit. And going forward, what would
we hope they do.
Yeah, what would the change be going forward then on that? Do you know?
So if they side the way that Judge Green did in Cole County,
Yeah.
then that the law stands the way it was decided. So that means there can be no longer a single administrator, because when you think about it, it's an administrator. It was an appointed position by Governor Parson or whoever the governor was. So it's an administrator of something. He was not duly elected by the people. So why should he have any power to say anything to us that we had to abide by, especially taking away our rights to go out in public, go eat at a restaurant?
Yeah,
You know,
or even have a restaurant, right? Have it open.
So, you know, so that's essentially a reset that to say, no, only state representatives or city representatives, people that were elected, can make these rules. So, and that's why, you know, if that judgment stands, we're good. But, you know, the Missouri Supreme Court is, you know, it is what it is. It's liberal. We don't know.
Yeah, that's why he pushed it up there. He was hoping to get them to side with them.
And Sam Page is using our tax dollars with several other counties in the state, but he's using our tax dollars to pay for the appeals.
Yeah, there's a
corrupt as hell.
Yeah, well, but the Supreme Court being liberal that way, how did that happen in the state of Missouri? How do we change that? I mean, that's something that would need to be changed too, right?
Oh yeah. Well,
we got a conservative governor. We've got a supposedly conservative Senate, right? So
we have a Republican governor.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say conservative. We have several very conservative senators. Not all of them by a long shot. They're very beholden to, you know, the special interests, the lobbyists, right?
Right. Do you find that more even on the local, like Missouri side versus national? So
it's both ways.
Yeah. On the state, do you also find, like, one of the things that I keep hearing, and maybe you can tell me what your experience is that, like, Republicans in southern Missouri kind of see things way different than Republicans like up here. So
you know, I think yes and no.
Okay.
I think so. The way I look at it is the reason why for the last couple of years, you know, all politics are local, right?
Yeah.
You know, you want to control the ones that can rip away your rights the quickest. We found that out in 2020. I think most areas of Missouri are very conservative outside the urban areas, obviously.
Sure.
And they all want to see very conservative type politicians because that's who they vote for. The problem is that a lot of people don't actually fully understand who they are they're voting for. So we have a Lincoln Huff down in southwest Missouri. I think he's in Springfield. And then you have Caleb Rowden, who's the Senate pro tem, one of the most powerful people in the state of Missouri.
Right.
And he's from Columbia. They are not Republican. They are very much Democrat. Their voting record stands by that. How did that happen? Well, it's because people didn't really do the full investigation on who they actually were voting for.
So they act like they're conservative or Republican. They get voted in, but they're really Democrat in policy.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you what I call it the Greenspan effect. So when I read Greenspan's book in the early 2000s after he stepped down as the Fed head, and you start reading his book, you realize he wasn't conservative except for fiscally. That's not really being conservative. That's not one little area out of 10. You know, if I'm conservative on this one issue, but I'm not conservative here, go straight down the list. It was like he's a Democrat that's just more conservative when it comes to fiscal policy.
Yeah.
That's really what he was, right? But he would claim that he was conservative. He's not conservative. So
right. And and that comes down to, people just need to understand you got to do your homework. You've got to ask the critical questions. Of the guys that are going to be running and that are actually going to be representing you where it really matters. And they're going to be away from your eyesight. You're just trusting that, okay, we made a handshake agreement. This is what you're going to do based on all your campaign promises, right? Well, then people, we work and we work a lot. Can you keep up with everything that's going on in Jefferson City? No. Let alone Washington, D.C., let alone the county council, your local, city council. Right. It's an impossible task to do. So we need to find a better way to ensure that these guys that are saying they're Republican will actually follow through on those Republican promises.
Right.
And that takes a lot of hard questions to be asked and demanding a straight answer and not a, wishy-washy answer,
Yeah, well, and you said special interest too earlier. I mean, how do we adjust that even on the local side? Because we're seeing the influence of special interest, right? I mean, we just had here in St. Louis, the prosecuting attorney who was just kicked out, right? Kim Gardner, for receiving special. I mean, she didn't get kicked out from this, but the way she got in was through special interest money of Soros, which he's not in St. Louis. He's not local. He has no corporation here. He was strictly trying to change the city's policies, and he knew it's a lot easier to do on the local side than it is on the federal side. So versus putting that money to work on, elections dealing with the national side, I'm going to go and influence, and obviously St. Louis is one of many. Are you hearing like Republicans wanting to address this somehow? Or to me, it seems like there should be something done to control that. You're seeing states like Texas that are passing bills or Florida that say no Zuckerbucks and that kind of thing. So.
Right. I don't really have an ear out for the national level. I don't have a whole lot of
But even on the local side, I mean, the state of Florida passed it for their whole state, so Zuckerbucks can go in or Soros can't go in and affect their DAs going forward.
Right.
So
I think that's a case by case basis. But I think what we did learn here in the state of Missouri, especially through that poor volleyball player that had her legs,
Amputated,
lopped off, by that, and the dude that did it. What he had disobeyed parole was 90, 100 times, and what did they do with him? Nothing. So, I'm very hopeful that the people in St. Louis and Kansas City, they finally understand. Look, your votes actually are changing people's lives. I mean, look, what was it? The Chicago over the weekend, where they had 45, 48 individual shooting events, 12 people dead. But they went from one radical mayor to a full-on communist mayor.
Yeah,
it's because people don't think out of the box. They're used to voting a certain way, a Democrat, and you could even say this about Republicans. They knee-jerk vote for a Republican who's ever on the ballot. Well, what did you look at from at the beginning before this person got on the ballot? Yeah. Did you ensure that person was the right, standard bearer for your party? And I guarantee you, not very many. And a lot of that could come from closed primaries, open primary versus closed primary. So Missouri's an open primary state. It's bad. But we try to use that in St. Louis County to try to vote a different candidate in to replace Sam Page, so at least we can get him off the ballot during the main election. Well, That failed both times.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Mark Mantovani came in at the last second this last go around. He actually gave it for, you know, I think that he had a full.
Yeah. If he hadn't come in so late, I think he might have had.
He could have won. He could have won.
Yeah. He had a lot of steam going.
Yeah. You know, is he my kind of Republican? No. But I think when you look at it, you know,
But he's not your Republican. He'd be the city's Republican, right? Or
exactly.
the county, and you got a big.
Yeah. Because I mean, when you look at it, you know, from what a county executive or even a mayor, it doesn't matter. They're only by statute, they only are allowed to do certain things. Does abortion, I know KSDK, I think it was KSDK, asked the abortion question of Mantovani and Page. What does that have to do with the county executive? It has nothing to do. It was a catch me.
Yeah.
You know, it was totally inappropriate.
Here's unrelated.
Right. It's not, he can't have any position on that. All he can do, he's the chief administrator of the county.
Yeah. It's like asking him what his favorite ice cream is. Who cares?
Exactly. It doesn't matter, but it gets people's hackles all lit up. And that's why they asked it to set Page up. Right. So
I'm just curious. I mean, since you've kind of been with Mark Hardenall and you've had these conversations and obviously the redistricting, have they thought about maybe redistricting? I know there's been a lot of talk about the city becoming part of the county and making them one. Have they thought about just doing that with North County and then separating the county out?
I couldn't tell you if that's happened or not, but I know.
I mean, that would seem like it'd be a very good
test bed. I mean,
North County is basically a lot of the city has moved to North County, so it would just bring them back in, and then it would free up the politics of North County from the rest of the other, you know, South and West County. So you could go basically anything north of like 40 is a part of that, and anything below it.
Yeah, and you would have you still have your conservative areas north of 40, and I'm sure they would not be happy with that one bit.
Well,
I know what you're saying. I'm
sure they would too, but I mean, you're. I mean, at some point right now, what's going on is you're seeing, because of that, those conservatives in the county we're not gaining voices. Every years that go by in election cycles, we're losing voices because more of the city is populating in North County, and that North County continues. They're knocking down houses, building smaller houses and apartments and all that down there, and so it just continues to flourish with lower income. And then it's being pushed on to the politics of that come with those in the other areas. So basically we're paying the cost of it. So that's why I was curious if there was any. It would seem very logical to me to somewhere along the line, you've got to start to think more strategic, looking out and going, okay, well, if we continue this, we're going to basically lose the conservative values of the county, and the county will become just like the city. So, which is, you know, when we're talking about like a Sam Page, and we're having to go with a Mantovani, who's very, very, very moderate, really more of a Democrat running as conservative because he's a moderate Democrat. So
Yeah.
How do you flip that script and tie? You know, sometimes you got to fortify yourselves to win a battle.
Well, right, and the reunification is going on. I mean, why do you think that they want to have the police, you know, they want to work together, which is fine topically. I mean, it is, because you want to take care of your brothers, sisters back and forth. But right now, and then when Wesley Bell wants to help out the prosecutor's office down in the city, you know, if people don't have their, you know, the alarms going off in their head, they really need to, because these are little incremental steps, right?
Sure.
The reason why as a country we're here is incrementalism on the left, the little bitty things here and there, until all of a sudden you have the chaos that we have today.
Yeah.
These are the little steps that are happening.
Well, Wesley Bell's another great example of why I think if you fortified, you'd have a much better result for those who have conservative values, you know?
Right.
So.
And unfortunately right now we sort of have a California and New York effect where, you know, a lot of really good people are moving out of the county to move out to Jefferson, Franklin, Lincoln, St. Charles, because they've had enough. I can admit that we're looking out in Franklin County because, you know, I never want to give a fight, because this is a fight.
Yeah.
It's an ideological fight, and it's for the right reasons. But, you know, at the same time, I have to look at what's in the best interest of my family. Because if you're not doing that, everything else just sort of falls away.
Right. You got to look at the best interests of your family. And also, I mean, maybe that's where you fortify, right? Maybe you go out and you make sure, okay, this is the line in the sand. And we're going to make sure, okay, when this stuff starts to push into Franklin County, that there's hard walls and stops up to where it can't bleed over.
Exactly.
And so, that's, I see the wisdom in that. I mean, you look at like Rockwood School District, and I mean, we just had another election cycle, and you talked about people running as conservatives. Well, I know one of the gals running who ran as a conservative, but she had no. I mean, she was probably conservative 20 years ago underneath Bush, but underneath today, she would not.
No,
not conservative, and yet she was going around and telling people. So I would talk to people, like, well, she says she's conservative. I'd be like, no, she's not.
Right, and there's
one little area.
Right, and there's the thing. People need to understand who they are, who they're voting for, but. Based off of, Izzy Imig and, I can't.
Jessica.
Yeah,
we're hoping.
My apologies, Jessica.
No, we're going to actually, both of them should be on our show here shortly. We're working
Fantastic.
on having Izzy and hopefully her husband on here to talk about.
Jason's a good man.
Yeah.
Good man.
We want to hear what an interesting story of just her trip to the United States all that. And then we're hoping to get Jessica on here just because, I think she's kind of misunderstood too, even by the conservatives, because she comes from a different background. And so, I find that when I talk to people, like, well, and I'm like, look, I would probably feel a little weird about that too, but I worked in inner city for quite a while, and so some of those urban things that are cultural that you just don't understand unless you've been part of the hood or been in the hood a little bit or been part of a full-on urban setting. You're just not. It seems a little weird in our conservative bubble sometimes, and so we got to be willing to look beyond that and ask some questions as to the character of the person.
Well, exactly. Well, I think the big win, even though we didn't really have a win per se, we actually. I wouldn't say regress, but we stayed at status quo. Yeah. But is that these candidates had to brand themselves as conservative to win. Yeah. They would never have done that before had it not been for the previous election cycle. So the NEA got active, which it's a machine. It's a political action machine. And they just did a better job.
I'll tell you what, the politician that figures out how to break up the NEA, I will forever. They will go in infamy on my wall. So
heck yeah,
whoever can figure out how to break up that union and keep it from having the influence that it has in our schools, my goodness, that would. I think more parents, even liberals, don't understand how much influence that have on what goes on in this country and in our local schools.
Well, I guess one of the wonderful ironies that came out of 2020 and everything like that, and the shutdowns of the schools and all of that, is that parents actually had a front row seat to exactly what their kids were being taught on their laptops.
Yep.
And because they wanted to keep things shut down and kids remote, which was the worst thing that could have ever happened to kids. We're seeing the impacts now. They allowed us to see exactly what was being pushed on the kids, and it wasn't education.
Here's a question I have for you, just as a local Republican. Are you finding moderates and classic Democrats starting? I mean, obviously, a lot of information now has come out about the jab and about masks and their effectiveness and or really non-effectiveness, right? And redoing. In fact, I had this conversation the other day with somebody at the gym. We were talking about the shots, and basically, I said, do you realize that the mRNA part of the shots, the new ones you get, barely even have it in there now.
Right.
Yeah, they've readjusted the dosages, even the original ones now you get. And so my question is, with all that information, are you finding them to be sympathetic? Maybe not saying I'm conservative or I'm Republican, but I'm starting, like I'm not kind of like an Elon Musk or some of these others that you're seeing out there who have been, Joe Rogan, another great example, guys who have been always liberal, right, in their mindset, classical liberal, Bill Maher, those type of guys, but on a local level going, I may have to vote Republican for the first time in my life. I'm not happy with it, but I'm not I'm not willing to go to this crazy land anymore. This is affecting my kids. I've seen the effects now. You guys are still holding on to some of this stuff, and I don't understand it because we're seeing this. I'm not for, the affecting of young kids, and I'm not for, you guys call it banning of books, but the truth is it's putting pornography in elementary schools. I'm not okay with that. I think that, are you seeing that? Because I see it on social media, and so I'm just curious if, as a Republican on the local side, if you're hearing some of those things coming back to you from a local point of view.
A little bit,
So.
a little bit. I mean, if for example, the St. Louis County Supporting Kids and Community Group, the one that Shannon Robinson put together back in the dark days of 2020, I think it's got 12,000 participants in that group. And that's not just Republicans. There are a lot of Democrats in that. And you can see lively chatter, especially when someone posts something that someone else disagrees with. And that's what it's all about. You want to have free ranging conversations. So I like you and I can disagree with what you say. You can disagree with what I say. Just keep it on the up and up, and just have that conversation. And then it's our job to convince one another why I'm correct in this and why you should, sort of come along.
Right.
And I think we're seeing that more and more, especially with, you hear about the Blexit movement on a national level.
Yeah, I mean, Ice Cube the other day coming out on his podcast saying, I won't vote Republican, and I would tell African Americans Democrat. I would tell African Americans don't vote Democrat going forward. I was shocked. I mean, I knew that he's had some pretty wild swings. He talked about not taking the shot.
He was on set of a movie. He got canned, right?
Yeah,
because he wouldn't take the shot to be on set.
Yeah,
and I think
he lost the movie. He was going.
Yeah.
He'd been given a job and it took it back. Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah,
and you need big names like that to speak up, to finally get other people. Whether you like it or not, celebrities are celebrities. Some are very enlightened. Others are just not. But you need some of those that have some sway, in culture, to say something that's brutally honest like that, and then you start getting into the heads, of a lot more folks. And I think he's absolutely right, because what has happened since the 1950s and 60s with the this is where my words fail me again.
Civil rights?
Civil rights. Thank you.
Yeah.
Civil rights laws that were actually written by Republicans, and were hijacked in name only by Democrats. What has happened? They have gotten nothing. They have absolutely gotten nothing except bigger government and more, money given to them just to,
appease them.
To me, that's like the ultimate racism right there, because you do not have enough respect for people that you don't have enough belief in them that they can live a life on their own without you having to look over everything. And to me, sort of like 2020, I'll just say it pisses me off to no end, because people are people. They were put on this earth by God for a reason. And you leave them alone, they can do great things. And the government does nothing but suck that out of people. Like folks getting, going on welfare without having to have any work requirements. Democrats know that just sucks the human spirit out of people. It changes people. It just does.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just the ultimate evil, that you get people to believe in government is their God instead of God. Well,
and also creating off-ramps. I noticed that from a housing perspective, that was one of the things that Ben Carson did really good when he was in charge of HUD. He looked at housing and he said, okay, all these people are getting Section 8 housing. We want to continue that, but we need to have an off-ramp. And right now the off-ramp is as soon as you cross this financial threshold, which we're looking at your finances every year. So you're turning in stuff every year. The minute you cross it over by $1, you're no longer on the program. And he said that there's no incentive to make more, because the minute you're over, even if it's just a little bit, that means you're now having to cover this all on your own. So he created a 3-year off ramp. We'll only look at your finances every 3 years. That gives you 3 years to create raises, to build up, and they were finding great success with it, because it was an incentive for people to actually make more, and you have a couple years to do so. Take those raises, do this, do that. And build up, and then go get your housing. And then he added more assistance on people being able to, who were putting away money, to be able to get a little bit extra assistance. So, versus maybe coming up 3.5% with FHA, then I only had to come up with 1.5%, because part of it could be covered if you showed that you'd been coming off and you built up your credit and did all these things. And they all made sense to me. So, what I always find interesting is then, like right now, you got this administration, and they'll take that and they'll go, well, versus give 1.5. Well, let's just give them the whole 3.5. Like now they don't got to come up with anything. And versus having a standard of credit, we'll just drop that standard even lower and make it easier. And all of a sudden you're going, wait. This is kind of the stuff that started leading to our last massive mortgage crisis. Let's keep a good standard. Let's hold people accountable. Let's give them some respect. Like, okay, bring a little skin to the game. Maybe you don't have to bring as much as other people, but earn some respect. And then, last I heard, I think they're going back to the yearly check-ins with the financials for HUD housing, if I heard it right. So I could be wrong on that, but I think I heard that. And that seems like a step backwards. I mean, once every 3 years seemed very reasonable, and gave people a chance to have a couple of years, to increase their income and get out of the program.
Well, and when you think about it from that perspective, and then Justice Thomas and the awful, names those gentlemen.
Oh, yeah.
And they came up from nothing, and look what they did with their lives. I mean, it's astounding what the American dream can actually become if you actually devote yourself into being able to and trying to do it, and you have parents that are pushing you to do it. What you're just saying, Josh, is that it's standard fare for the Democrat Party. They don't care for people to be able to be self-sufficient and to strive for being, people to be their best. They want and desire people to be beholden to them, to genuflect to them.
And I would say definitely at the national level, when we say Democrat, I just always like to correct that, because I do think there are some local people who, I look at our county.
You're absolutely correct.
Absolutely, some great people on there who I think, even though their reasoning behind some things may be incorrect, in my opinion, I think they genuinely want to do what's best for the people. So
I agree with you. I do agree with you.
Yeah. So but I mean, in general, from a national point of view, which I know we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but I want to kind of bring to the national view, because a couple things are going on. We just had the debt ceiling agreed upon. What are your thoughts on that? So.
It's the same old dog and pony show. I mean, play up a crisis, and then I understand that from a Republican standpoint, you run 1/3 of the government, so you don't have as much leverage to actually implement what you want to do.
Yeah, and you're not going to get everything. I mean, it's part of negotiating, right? So, I mean, I was listening to Ben Shapiro when you were coming in here, kind of give me his thoughts on it, but go ahead. So
my opinion is, first and foremost, why are the 87,000 IRS agents still in there? Why wasn't that starved of funds? At least pretend you're playing. At least pretend, and that just seems like we don't care. Maybe there are some deep down discussions that it was actually fought for and it wasn't won. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I just think that, I haven't gotten to read the entirety of the bill. And it was like 99 pages or something like that. But all I know is that everything that I have read online about it, they take the reins off of Congress to just raise, put a lot of money to whatever programs they want to, unabated for the next 2 years till January 1, 2025, if I'm not mistaken.
They've already had that. Okay, it actually reins in that ability by about by almost 30%.
Okay.
According to Ben Shapiro, what's going on right now is, like, let's say military spending. right now, they've got free reign of about 60%.
Okay.
And 40% is dedicated in military spending. So the 60% is what they can do whatever they want. And then so they can put it at diversity and equity and make that the priority. Whereas the new one would make it 60. So it kind of reverses it from a 60-40 split one way to making it 60-40 the other way. So now they've still got some leeway, but it's only 40%. The other thing it does, it put caps on at 1% for exponential growth going forward, so that they just can't do a 4% budget increase, like they did in the past. It'll put a 1%. So, I'm kind of reading into it. I've been listening, as I said, I was listening to Ben. I didn't get the whole thing listened to yet, but I'm always curious in him because he likes to break down numbers and he kind of takes the emotion.
Smart guy. Yeah.
Well, and he takes emotion out of it. He's like, hey, from like, he's like, Chip Roy, I'm going to read what he has to say because I agree 100%. On the other hand, were we going to get all that? Or are we going to have to, as you said, we got one little part of one piece of the government. Do we got to take some wins here and understand that we didn't push some of that a little back and at least cap some of the craziness a little bit? And so that's kind of where he was going on it. And he's like, is this the perfect one for Republicans and conservatives? No. But is it something that Biden have to negotiate? I mean, his negotiation stance was, I'm not going to do anything. And now we've got this, and that, and we've got some measured increments and put some stuff in place, at least going forward, where they can't. If they were to get Congress again, they wouldn't be able to go free reign again and do another 4 or 5% increase. So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of where he was landing as I.
No, I think that's fair. It's just the way I understand and see things. From where I've been the past couple of years. 'Cause I've only been involved the past couple of years, really.
Yeah.
Is the dog and pony shows that happen on in the background where the stories are written.
Yeah, sure.
The proverbial sausage is made, and then the backstory. Okay, you're going to, from your side, you're going to say this. From my side, I'm going to say this, and this is how we became heroes, and this is how we came across as. This is what we wrote. That's what I always look at as. I wonder what actually was talked about and how deeply it was talked about. So I have developed even more so a hard stance on my, I guess, disillusionment. It's always been I've always not been what's the right illusioned with our government, but I have learned so many more things that I don't just buy the thing that's being presented right at face value.
Yeah.
There's always a multitude of stories in the background.
You've had a little bit of the wool removed from
a whole lot of the wool. Sometimes I really want to go back to green pill or blue pill, I should say. Yeah. My wife tells me that all the time. I wish I could take that blue pill.
Well, I always hear about the debt ceiling, and I always think like you still have the word debt in front of it. Like we're still like we're still going towards more debt. So like, who cares if it's like super fast or like just
we're going to get to the edge eventually.
At some point, there's going to be something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ben was kind of talking about that we're on the trajectory like a lot of other countries. I guess he was saying the last time a country actually self-corrected was Canada in the 1970s. So he's like, it's been 40 years since any type of country self-corrected themselves from this kind of a cliff. So
yeah, but it'll get painful eventually.
Yeah.
Well, so one more quick thing. I bring this up just because she's right literally across the road, and I'm trying to get her on the thing. Ann Wagner, have you dealt with her at all?
I have not. I think I've met her a couple times. I haven't had a personal one-on-one conversation with her.
Okay.
So,
well, I've reached out. I'm trying to get her. She's literally kitty cornered to our office building. So
yeah.
I was trying to, when she's in town, trying to get her over here to.
From my perspective, she couldn't be a nicer person.
Yeah.
Now, do we agree on certain political things? Probably not. But I have my opinions on certain things, but at the end of the day, when you talk about them, you want to at least have an even keel when you're trying to have these conversations.
Right. Well, I mean, there is some. I mean, conservative is a big word, or Republican is a big word. And there's a lot of check marks in those boxes. Mm-hmm. So somebody can be, 80%, but maybe not 100% sometimes, right? I mean, I think the thing that scares me is when they're like, when I was saying earlier, you get somebody like a Greenspan who's like 1 out of 10 check marks, or, you find out that there's really no substance. I mean, it's not like there's even a little bit, right? I mean, so, but I hear you. So, Jay, what else is going on before we let you go with the Republicans, Wild Horse Township, and anything that people can do to help you out or get involved for the next election? Obviously, June show up. So.
Yep, June. Start looking at some of the bills. Well, some of the bills that won't happen until December when legislators across the state pre-file their bills to be heard in the next session, which starts on January, I think 3rd next year, something like that.
Is there people locally that you recommend reaching out to or talking to about those? Like, honestly,
just find your local legislator.
Okay.
And just call up their office. They're all extraordinarily nice folks. I mean, they really are. And I think 90% of them go into office and they want to do the right thing. They really do. Now, are they able to do all of them? Probably not. And I can tell you not. But it doesn't mean that they're not trying.
Hey, right. What are the names of the 10%, please?
Nice. I see what you did there. But somebody like Holly Michelle, Holly Jones, I should say.
Yeah, she's good.
Justin Sparks. He's actually, I mean, he is wicked smart. He's somebody, those two you really need to have on your show. Phil Oler-King. Senator Koenig, I know he's on his last term, so he's going to be termed out. But, Ben Keithley, but these are really, really, really good people, salt of the earth kind of folks who want to do the right thing.
Right.
And we just need to make sure that they hear us, even when they slip, because slipping can happen, that, they hear from you, call them up, email them. Get in the car and drive out there. It's about a 2-hour drive. It's a pretty drive down Highway 50, or if you want to go up 70, that god awful highway. And just go visit them. The Capitol building's beautiful, and just get to know them.
Gotcha. And do you usually set an appointment up when you go to visit them, or you just show up?
Well, the past few times I haven't really had a chance to visit because I find out that something is going to be discussed in committee. And I decide, with it, hopefully the day before, that I'm going to take some time off during the day, drive out dark early, say my piece in whatever committee meeting that is, and drive back and sometimes get back online for work. But a lot of the times get back online for work.
Gotcha.
So
it's doable.
It is doable. It takes effort.
Yeah.
But the effort is worth it if you're look at your household. Look at your kids and tell yourself that it's not worth putting in the extra time. Do you have to be perfect? Absolutely. God, I'm beyond imperfect. But it can be done. And if, all I implore everybody is get to know your legislators, get to know the Missouri Constitution, get to know how things operate, and get connected to your local Republican precinct. And your townships, and I'll be happy to share more information on that with you offline, Josh, and get the word out, and we can make 2024 happen.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of people who are starting to wonder and either want to get more involved after what we've gone through, but also think there's a lot of people who maybe were a little harder on one side or the other, and they're starting to look forward to some common sense, and they want to see common sense brought back. And
absolutely. All I can say is if an idiot like me can get involved to the level I have, I wasn't seeking it. I didn't want to do it. And there are times I really don't want to do it, but you do it because there are I just say it's part of the mission. It's not about the individual. It's about the mission, because there's so many things that are broken, on the local level, national level. Do your best to control the local level as best as you can. And remember, it's the next generation. You do not want to back down right now. And that's why AB and Kohl's, Target, and the other breweries, and God knows who else is going to be discovered later today and tomorrow. Would we have ever discovered this and had the same uproar in the past? Absolutely not. now that beer being the last bastion of peace and solitude and apolitics, zero politics, you want to have a beer, watch the game, watch the sunset, whatever. They take that away. And now it has to be politicized as well. That's why there's such the uproar. Continue to keep your eyes open and don't fear the backlash. You're going to be called god-awful names. People are going to come at you with the most horrendous words, try to get you fired. It's that bad. But, it can be done.
Those are the same people that are like we're getting kicked in the shin.
Sometimes.
And then you say, hey, why are you kicking me in the shin? They're like, hey, I'm kicking you in the shin. I want to kick you in the shin. Like,
Pretty much.
You're getting yelled at for being kicked in the shin.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It was your fault in the first place.
Right, yeah.
Hey,
you kicked me in the shin, bud.
Have you been in my house the last few days? No, my two boys arguing with one another. Dad, he did this. Oh. No, but he started it by doing that. But Dad, he, and it's like.
The best is
boys.
In the back seat, yeah, when they're in confined spaces.
Oh.
No, thank you.
Been there, done that growing up.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Yep.
Well, you got anything else? Any other...
I like how you said staying on mission, man.
Yeah,
that's something I think that we all need to be focused on, is staying on mission for our families and stay involved locally, because it just spills upwards, right?
Absolutely. It's not about the individual. It's 100% about the mission. I don't like talking in public very much, but you just get used to it. And I will never listen. I starting a new project out in 93.3, co-hosting a show past couple weeks. I won't listen to myself. I probably won't watch this because I can't do it.
Oh, that's all right. You're doing fine.
But,
I have a hard time watching myself too, so I understand.
So I got this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things. But you got a marvelous, fabulous beard, man.
I appreciate it. That's why I keep it.
There you go. But it's much bigger than any individual, and that's the trick in all of it. That is 100% the trick that people need to understand. One voice can change a lot.
All right.
Don't complain if you're not willing to change it, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, you lose your right to complain if you're not willing to do something about it.
Right, and you don't have to be 100 miles. I tried 100 miles an hour for many, many months, and I had to back down because it was impacting, my health. It was impacting my family because, well, Jason, you're not. We need you here too.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you know that you got to back rev a little bit. So
you're doing the 93 thing. When is that? And if people want to catch you on that, and assuming that you kind of continue to do some co-hosting, what would they do?
93.3 at what time?
So 1 p.m. on Sundays.
Okay.
So Bill Bowers, the gentleman, very, very nice man. And Rick and Tracy Ellis, allowed me an opportunity to get on their radio station, just to give it a go, to see what I think. And, as long as, they like what I say or how I say it, then,
got something there.
Keep it right. It's awesome. Something I never thought I would ever do. Not in a trillion years. And here we are.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Unexpected.
Well, right. I don't know, a year ago if I would have thought I'd be doing this. So
we're all
this is solid.
We're all sitting here. We're all sitting here.
Yeah, having great conversations and learning a little bit about each other. So I really like it. So
thanks for coming in today, man.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. And I just appreciate you guys, for the invite and that, as you want to listen to.
No,
well, I'm sure we'll hear things about like the lawsuit coming up and things down the line. I'm sure we'll want your take on it again.
Yeah, we'll have to get them back in here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just give me a shout.
I will.
Will do. Well, with that, thanks again for watching in on Triple Play, or listening in if you're a listener. Make sure you're liking and subscribing and checking out the merch and everything on the website. And very, very soon, I know we're test piloting right now. So the app is hopefully going to be rolling very, very shortly. So
click and play, push and play. That's it.
Yeah, it'll be really easy.
More searching.
So we got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. So keep an eye out on that. And with that said, have a great one.
Take care.
Bye.